Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is the 10th of March, and my name is George Glass, an Associate Managing Director in the Cyber Threat Intelligence team. Joining me today from the CTI team is Ryan Hicks, Dave Truman, Mukesh Nagar, and Sarah Carrigan. As always, we'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's get into the situational report. First up, this is some more news following the Blackbuster leaks from a couple of weeks ago. Researchers have linked CAPTCHAs ransomware tactics to former affiliates of Blackbuster, noting the use of similar tools and techniques. Researchers at 10 Micro assess that CAPTCHAs employs the BackConnect module for persistent control over infected systems, allowing for data theft and remote command execution. And that is the connection that is being made between Blackbuster and CAPTCHAs, and suggests that affiliates of Blackbuster also worked previously with the CAPTCHAs ransomware group also. Next up, we have a report on fake CAPTCHAs, malicious PDFs, and SEO. On February 12th, researchers reported a widespread phishing campaign using SEO poisoning and fake CAPTCHA images via Webflow CDN to target victims searching for PDF documents on search engines. Research uncovered 260 unique domains hosting nearly 5,000 phishing PDF files that redirected victims to malicious websites designed to steal credit cards and personal information. In some cases, fake CAPTCHAs were used to initiate malicious PowerShell commands, ultimately leading to LumaStealer, which we're very familiar with after all the reporting that we've been doing on that. Attackers were also found to have uploaded the malicious PDF files to online libraries and PDF repositories like PDF Copy, PDF4 Pro, PDF Beam, and the Internet Archive, targeting victims not only searching for PDF documents on search engines, but also searching within those PDF library repository websites as well. And lastly, HTTP client exploitation for account takeover attacks. On January 30th, researchers at Proofpoint released the findings of an investigation into the use of legitimate HTTP client tools to compromise Microsoft 365 environments. They found that 78% of Microsoft 365 tenants were targeted at least once by an account takeover attempt utilizing this method, a 7% increase from the prior 6 months. Most HTTP-based cloud attacks utilize brute force. That means there's low success rate, but a recent campaign using unique HTTP client, CAPTCHAs, has an especially high success rate, comprising 43% of targeted user accounts. In that campaign, Microsoft 365 credential theft was facilitated by email-borne phishing, leveraging reverse proxy toolkits capable of stealing MFA tokens. Stolen credentials and MFA tokens were then used to compromise accounts using Axios HTTP client tool, targeting specific Microsoft Office sign-in apps. Proofpoint identified that over 178,000 targeted user accounts across 3,000 plus organizations, mainly in the education sector. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. So let's get into the rest of today's briefing. Today, we're going to cover the following trends. Ryan is covering a growing threat of fake IT workers operating out of North Korea. Dave will be covering some activity regarding exploitation of VMware vulnerabilities. Mukesh is talking about FRIGIDSTEALER, a new macOS threat. And of course, Sarah is here to take us through the Ransomware Roundup. So I will pass it over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, George. So in Q4 last year, we highlighted a campaign which North Korean nationals successfully applied for IT jobs as part of a fraudulent scheme to generate illicit revenue for the North Korean government. So since then, the campaign appears to remain very active, affecting organizations globally, particularly impacting both the US and Southeast Asia. Last week, NISOS released a report in which they tracked a network of North Korean affiliated workers posing as Vietnamese, Japanese, and Singaporean nationals. So the key indicators really that they identified from that report were sort of a common theme throughout of them claiming sort of experience in developing web and mobile applications, knowledge of multiple programming languages, and understanding of blockchain technology. So that's kind of quoted in kind of sort of experiences throughout a lot of the applicants. Appear to have a number of accounts on employment and freelance platforms, yet they don't often have social media presence or very recently created presence. And that the heavy use of digitally manipulated photos used on their kind of freelance accounts platforms, kind of essentially pasting or putting the applicant's face onto lots of different stock photos in attempts to sort of show them what working remotely or working as a team, these kind of fairly obvious sort of stock photos that they're using on those platforms. And information shared through a partner, intelligence partner, also identified additional indicators, which included the applicant often requests equipment delivery to a different address than that provided during background checks. So that was identified, as well as a heavy avoidance of being on camera during calls. And both of these indicators are frequently reported as well by other sources. And as more of a kind of technical indicator, it was noted that once or in some cases, once the applicant successfully got the job, the device that the individual used for octa verification or any kind of multi-factor authentication displayed their real name within the device name. And that didn't match up to the name that they provided during the application, so that raised further suspicions. And just looking back at the campaign as a whole, the US Department of Justice released a statement last month whereby an individual from Arizona in the US pleaded guilty to assisting overseas IT workers posing as US citizens to gain employment at more than 300 US companies at these kind of remote IT positions. And the outcome of that, according to the DOJ, was over $17 million in illicit revenue towards the North Korean government. And so the risks highlighted here really just emphasize the continued needs for sort of thorough vetting and security measures for remote workers, particularly in IT positions, based on this ongoing campaign. That's all for me. I'll hand back to George.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Really, really interesting stuff. Dave, I think you've got some news for us regarding some vulnerabilities in VMware. Over to you.
Thank you. Broadcom has released patches for 3 VMware hypervisor vulnerabilities that have been added to the CISA known exploited vulnerability catalog. The vulnerabilities impact VMware ESXi, vSphere, Workstation, Fusion, Cloud Foundation, and Telco Cloud Platform. CVE 2025-22224 has a CVSS score of 9.3 as a heap buffer overflow that an attacker with local administration rights on a guest virtual machine can utilize to execute code on the host as the virtual machine executable VMX. CVE 2025-22225 has a CVSS 8.2 score and is an arbitrary write vulnerability that allows an attacker to trigger an arbitrary kernel write from the VMX process. CVE 2025-2226 has a CVSS score of 7.1 and is an information leaking vulnerability that can link information from the VMX process. The 3 vulnerabilities can be chained to escape a guest virtual machine and gain full access over the hypervisor. Due to local administration rights being required to exploit these vulnerabilities, those organizations most susceptible to attacks are those who give full control of guest virtual machines to customers, such as a hosting provider, or to organizations that use a hypervisor with untrusted VMs. However, vulnerabilities in software running inside a guest machine may also provide a route to obtain local administration privileges. Therefore, it is important to patch the VMware products as soon as possible. Thank you. George.
Thank you very much, Dave. And now we go over to Mukesh for a new macOS threat. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thank you, George. So researchers over at Proofpoint discovered that a threat actor, which they refer to as TA272, which we are internally tracking as KTA420, was running a fake browser update scam targeting macOS users outside of North America. Users visiting compromised websites were redirected to a fake browser update page. Once clicked the update button on the page, it will download a .dmg file disguised as a legitimate Chrome or Safari updater. Once the user installed this file onto their device, the malware called FRIGIDSTEALER would bypass macOS's gatekeeper security and start exfiltrating sensitive data such as browser cookies, saved passwords, cryptocurrency files, as well as Apple Notes. The data is then sent to a command and control server. What makes this campaign even more sophisticated is that the malware was built using Whales.io, which is a Go language application. This allowed the fake update browser page to appear super convincing by rendering it directly into the user's browsers. It also used OSAS script to trick users into giving up their credentials and executing system level commands. Now, the threat actor KTA 420 wasn't working alone. Proofpoint also noticed that there were some collaborations with other threat groups such as TA569 and KTA 419. These threat actors were used to redirect traffic and maximize infection reach. This whole operation shows that macOS malware is getting a lot more sophisticated than we've seen previously, and fake update laws are becoming a lot more difficult to spot. If I can leave you with one thing is, if you do see an update prompt appear out of nowhere, think twice before clicking it. That's everything from me. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. And last but by no means least, we go over to Sarah for the Ransomware Roundup. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, George. We have a couple things for this week's roundup. First, we are talking about the B and Lian physical letters. Now, we've observed various different letters, and they've gone to different organizations that received these in the mail, and it was quote unquote from the B and Lian group, and they were demanding payment in Bitcoin. These letters contained pretty much similar language, and the payment amounts that this group was demanding kind of varied from 150 to 500,000, and this was different for each organization. When we were researching this, the organizations who did receive these letters, they have not been posted or mentioned on any of these ransomware data leak sites right now. So it's not indicating any kinds of signs of a ransomware intrusion right now. We also observed too on these different letters that each letter also had a varying Bitcoin payment address. So the letters weren't consistent within the payment demands or the Bitcoin addresses. So we believe that these are not actual B and Lian ransomware letters, but instead an imposter to these threat actors. There's various different kinds of evidence that leads researchers as well as Kroll that were saying that the letter was very well written in English, and within the letter there wasn't any willingness to negotiate a ransom payment, which, you know, most of the time these groups do want to negotiate just to end up with at least a little bit more money, or, you know, not go any lower than what the initial ransomware payment was demanded. Also on these letters, there was no Talks ID or chat login or email address to contact these groups for victim organizations to reach out. And this is usually where negotiations may happen, or any other information the victim may need be provided, such as decryptors and whatnot. So it was also very strange for none of this contact information to be listed in these letters, just for negotiations to happen. There are a couple researchers who did recently reach out to B and Lian, the actual group, to confirm their involvement in this scam. And the group says, we never do that. That is scam. And they continue by stating that they are a well-known group and believe this scam will not negatively impact them. So that's the update on our BNLean physical letters. And then for our next story, we identified a new ransomware group, and a lot of groups are popping up all the time with the creation of their data leak sites. This group emerged around this month with the creation of their data leak site. What was interesting about this group was the various sections that they had on their sites that provided victim organizations in-depth information such as liability, cases, and potential losses. And on this group's homepage, they kind of declare a threat towards victim organizations, and it says, quote unquote, PS, and yes, don't waste time contacting law enforcement. By the time they start acting, the data will already be published on all major platforms. You don't want that, do you? So this group also provides a tactic that's not really commonly seen on other ransomware groups' data leak sites, and this is by providing detailed legal information on their data leak sites, such as real data breach cases, where they give they list various cases that have been seen in the news, and criminal liability. So the criminal liability is involving specific information on SEC, FTC fines, civil lawsuits, business bans, and mandatory measures. So the group also lists various contacts and resources section on their data leak site. And they list that they will notify the section that has listed journalists, activists, and platforms that Ox thieves can reach out to and notify that a ransomware attack has occurred, just to kind of spread and publish this information, just to get it out in the news. What's also unique about this contacts and resources section, like I said, with the activists, journalists, any other researchers, they have listed names such as Troy Hunt, Brian Krebs, and Edward Snowden. And they list resources such as Have I Been Pwned and databreaches.net. So at the time of writing, we did observe only one victim listed on the site, and we're going to continue to monitor for further insights and updates, just because of the uniqueness of this group and what their data leak site is like. That's all for me, George.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Really interesting. That's all we have time for today. So once again, thank you to Sarah, Ryan, Dave, and Mukesh. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, please do reach out to us, cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. Have a wonderful day.